Some time ago, Richard Main produced these floppy adapter cables for the MDS series. They're really quite useful. The problem with it was they were produced with a package called Express PCB, which is a closed format. It's fine if you want to have your boards produced by Express PCB, but they are very, very expensive. The artwork is still available if you want an original board, but be prepared to pay sort of $100 worth for the two boards. There was also this board as well, which completely eliminates the internal cabling on the MDS, which is really useful if you, especially if you haven't actually got that cabling, which is often the case. Fortunately, Bill Beach had already drawn the schematics for this board. So what I've done, I've reproduced using those schematics a new version of this, and also created this one again from scratch. So have a look at the new one. That way. So this is the new board. It's the same physical layout. The track layout is vaguely similar possibly, but that doesn't really matter. It still functions the same. That's the back side of it, the end. It differs a little from the original design, because if you look at this one, that's not probably, I'm not sure if you can actually see it. I don't think you can actually. Oh, it's down here. There's some writing on the board, which is probably barely visible, which says radial ready straps. And the idea was that you put your radial ready straps on this connector here, which I thought was a bit inconvenient, especially if you decided to connect an 8-inch drive. So what I've done, I've moved those straps into the middle of the PCB here. So that's my little modification, and I've now called this a revision 5 board, whereas the previous one was a revision 4. So that's that one. The other board is very, very similar to the original. I think it's almost identical actually. There you go. Neither of the boards carry any branding, and we're not trying to pass these off as the original boards. You'll notice that this one is branded Zendex, a company that Richard worked for, and this one's branded ISIS MDS, which was the website that Richard had a few years back. So there we go. In addition to this, I've actually enhanced the system a little bit with this little board. What this little board does, it actually allows you to use both sides of a 3.5-inch disc, or probably a 5.25 as well for that matter, and it also controls the motor. The problem with the existing design, if you look closely, there's a little jump here that says motor on, and it is quite literally that. You know, as soon as you put a floppy in a 3.5-inch drive, the motor will start running, and that's obviously going to cause you wear on your head and your disc, you know, the longer the floppy remains in the drive. So that's what this little one does. And also, as I mentioned, you can use both sides of the disc. I'll explain that a little bit better when I move on. Okay, assembly wise, you really just need to put in the connectors you're going to use. No point in soldering in stuff you're not ever going to use. I would say put in all the radial ready links, the motor link, and the 360 RPM jumper. The radial ready links are required because the MDS needs to see a radial ready signal to know that the drive's actually ready to go, i.e. it's rotating and there's disk in it. So effectively these are actually faking that signal. None of the modern drives unfortunately can really generate that sort of signal. So that's what they're there for. So effectively all you're doing is grounding out the radial ready to the MDS. Other than that, it depends what you're going to use. So we've got a 50 pin connector here for 8-inch drives. We've got a 34 pin connector here. Now that one initially was for the IPDS and MDS4 series. You may or may not need that. If you want to add my extra little board, you will need it, because that's where it plugs in. I'll show that in a minute. The other ones are for the 4 3.5-inch drives, or 5 1/4. So if you only want 2 drives, then just put 2 connectors in. The final, well, there's a couple of connectors actually. There's this one and the 37Y at the end. Again, this is a sort of either or situation. If you use this to eliminate the internal cabling, then all you need is this one. If you're going to use the existing MDS 37-way connectors, then you're going to need to put the 37Y on the end. The advantage of using this is this carries the drive selects for all 4 drives, whereas the 37Ys only carry 2 selects. You'll notice they're labelled 0 and 1 and 2 and 3, so in a way this is more flexible, although you do get more drive if you use the 37Y one, but that shouldn't really be an issue because of the pull-up resistors on the later drives are much higher, so that shouldn't be a problem. One thing you might have noticed is if you look at these 2 boards, you'll notice that this 34-way connector here is on the top on my board, but on the bottom of Richard's one, and also this one's got it on the top, which is my one, and Richard's one's got it on the bottom. Now the only reason for that being is that doing it like this makes it easy to fit it into an MDS 800. If you're fitting it into a MDS 2, you may well do better to have them the other way around. That's what this was primarily designed for, so that's why they're the other way around. But it'll work just as well if you reverse the connectors. Just make sure you reverse them on both ends, otherwise you will have a problem. I think that's most of it. So that's the assembly process. Oh, so actually, in addition to that, let me just show you something. These connectors that fit on the top of the 202 disk interface board are very specific. There's a lot of connectors that will fit this spec and are the right pitch, but because of the tiny little fingers on the board in the MDS, you may have problems. So this particular one, little number on the side, is the only one that we know that works. I'll put a link into that so you can get the correct connector. Also, it comes with these huge pins on the end of it. I think it's used for wire wrapping. And what I did is that you get a bit of strip board and press it over the pins. Just do that. There we go. Right, so I've got a little strip board on there, and then you can get a pair of cutters in, press it hard up against the bit of strip board and cut it, and then just work your way along, and you get a nice neat height on your pins, as I've got there. So that's just a little tip. And one final thing, you might want to use better connectors than what I've used here. These are just headers really. You may want to use proper sort of boxed gold flashed headers, sockets, for a little bit more reliability. This was only a test board, so I wasn't too worried. Don't use a boxed header on this one though, because you're probably not going to be able to get everything to fit in properly, because it does the sort of inversion from one side of the board to the other. Probably pin 1's not actually going to be where you think it is. The final, this is the new board. There's nothing to this. These are just diodes. Little socket on the bottom. That's not even a double socket. I think I use single sockets for that. I might have some here actually. Just get them out of the packet. There you go, that's what I've used. I've just used 2 of those. They're very, very cheap on eBay, and these are actually gold as well, which is quite nice. If you're going to use the little add-on board to control the motor and the sides of the disc, it just clips on there, so just plug that in. There you go. And that's how that sits on the board. Right, that's the assembly process. What I'll do now is I'll plug a few cables in, just show you how it goes together, and then we'll test it on the MDS. Right, let's have a look at the various cabling options. Here I've got 50-way cable here going to an 8-inch drive, the normal sort of 50-way card edge type thing. I've got a 34-way one here, and that's going to a 3.5-inch drive. That's plugged into FDD-1. So I'd have my 8-inch drive strapped as DS0. This drive will automatically come up as drive 1 because it's in that socket. The sockets actually determine the drive number because all 3.5-inch drives are obviously strapped to DS1. So the PCB takes care of everything for you. We've got all the radial ready straps on. We could probably actually remove 0 if we wanted to, because the 8-inch drive would actually provide that signal. We've got motor on, and we've got the 360 RPM jumper. So that will give us drive 0 as the 8-inch and drive 1 on the 3.5. Right, so possible further option. Let's try. I'll take this off. This is all going to end up on the floor otherwise. It's so heavy. So just get it out of the way. For the connection to the actual MDS itself, we've got on this 34-way here, we've got the internal adapter, or you could use the 37-way into one of the 37 ways on the back of the MDS, but as I said before, you'll only get 0 and 1 or 2 and 3, so it just depends which way you want to go really. Obviously you can't use both at the same time. What you can also do, if we take off the motor jumper and put on my little board, clip him on there. We've now got control of the motor and double-sided. So what I need to do now is move this floppy, because this one needs to go in there, and the second one, let's get that over, will need to go into there. So probably the right way around. Let's get it right way around. So get that plugged in. One thing to check actually when you do connect your floppies up is that one side of the connector is always ground. So if you just get your multimeter out and buzz it out from the drive, you can get these around the right way, because on the right hand side, these are the, can't see that, can you? The right hand side, these are the grounds. They are marked pin 1, but just in case. So now what we've got now with this little board in action, I'll bring the drives over, get them in the right order. Looking at the 2 drives, we'll end up with, I can hold on to it, this will be drive 0 on the bottom of the disc, 1 on the top. This one will be drive 2 on the bottom and 3 on the top. That's how that works. Okay, so that's a couple of scenarios. It just depends what you want to do really. You know, there's loads of things you can do with this board. If you take my board off, you can have 4 completely separate drives. It just depends how you want to set it up really. The drives themselves, let me just shift that out of the way, you've got a couple of options. This is what I'm using. These are Samsung SFD-321Bs. They're fairly readily available. The only snag with this drive is that you're going to have to dismantle it, and under here can't see it with the case on, but there's a jumper called OPA, and you'll need to bridge that. It is a bit tricky. The purpose of that is to give you the option of 360 RPM, which you need, otherwise none of this is going to work. The other option is the TIAC FD235HG. These are very readily available. Dell use these in their thousands in the optiplex range. The only problem with it is you don't seem to get the front panel on them, because Dell had the front panel built into the front of the machine, so it just depends what you want, really. Either way, or rather any drive that you connect to this setup, again, you know, just making the point, it must be able to rotate at 360 RPM. That's in fact what this little jumper does. It actually just pulls down pin 2 on the floppy interface, which activates the mode select, and not all drives have that, so you're probably only going to find a handful of drives that will do that, and these are the two options, the TIAC and the Samsung, which are the most obvious. What else do we need to do? I think that's fairly straightforward. What I'll do now is I'll set all this lot up on the MDS, and we'll do a little demo. Right, I've got everything set up. We've got the 202 adapter on top of the floppy interface card. We've got this ribbon cable, this one here. It's going all the way around here, and it's going on to the SA800 card there. Might be a bit buried, I've got wires everywhere here. We've got this big wide single 50-way cable, that's going to the 8-inch drive. We've got 34-way cable going to this 3.5-inch drive, and another one going to this 3.5-inch drive. The way it's configured, the 8-inch drive is drive 1. That's been done by drive select links on the drive. This is drive 0 by virtue of the fact it's in FDD 0 here, and this drive is drive 3 because it's in FDD 3. Right, okay, let me just move the camera around and we'll do a little test run. Right, all ready to go. I'll pull a directory on drive 0 first. Okay, so that's 0. Let's get one off the 8-inch. That's going to be drive 1. There we go. And finally we'll pull one off this one, which is drive 3. Right, I'll do a quick copy just to prove it works. I'll copy from 8-inch to the drive 0 on the 3.5, so copy colon F1 colon. Oh. Wrong name there. F0 colon. That should be a bit better. Right, okay, it's reading off of drive 1. And let's copy it across to drive 0. Let's copy the file. I'll just copy it out. Just to prove it's there. So there you go, that'll do it for this one. In the next video I'll go over the little double-sided and motor select board, and also show how it works and why it works. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, and I shall see you next time.